Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Launch Code. Maybe on this one, we're not going to go full Rogan like Evan did on the last three. I think it was a three-parter. I don't know yet. I think we're still in the editing. But we have a very interesting guest today. One of which that we're asked about this probably the second most by fans and customers or people that just write in and stuff like that. And the first thing we always hear is everybody asks, what's a good vetted nonprofit to donate to? And the second one is how do I find a good lawyer? Well, we found a good lawyer. And he's going to tell us how to find a good lawyer if you're not hiring him. I think that's where we should start. Today joining me is Jeff Diamant. He has done a number of ventures, from owning a nylon kind of gear company to a guitar company, still producing guitars to this day. And then your biggest endeavor is a law firm.
And you forgot my career as an underwear model.
Yeah, and a scuba instructor.
That one is true, actually. The underwear model, not the scuba instructor.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait. Strike that. Reverse it.
Well, whichever. The latter of the two. So let's talk about that. When and where did you go to law school?
Well, I did my undergraduate at the University of Texas and started law school in 1992 at University of Houston, which is also home to me, Houston.
What was that experience like, law school? Is it a lot of debating?
Law school is a miserable experience.
Really?
Not so much because of the school itself, but because of law students. Law students are terrible people to be around. If you know one, you understand what I'm talking about, but they don't want to talk about anything other than law and law school. And if you can't talk about that in the same manner they can, then they're not interested in talking to you.
That sounds super boring.
It's terrible.
Yeah, so you have no social life on the outside.
Yeah,
with anybody of your peers.
No, you really don't. And the only peers you do have are the ones that are in school with you, and they're not, people you would otherwise want to be around in normal life. I was lucky; I had a couple of good friends out of that, but it's horrible. And I can't tell you how many law students I knew that, as they were going through the recruiting process, trying to get jobs after law school, were told stories about how they thought they were being groomed to take over the firm one day. And I'm like, dude, you're
okay. So yes, this seems like it's almost like this industry is very similar to like everybody in LA that's trying to be an actor. So it's like everyone goes to the school together, and then they all break off and get hired at firms, and now they're all trying to one up each other of like, I'm getting the big next role, I'm gonna be the star.
You saw the movie Swingers?
Yeah.
I love that movie, and I'm thinking about taking a role as Goofy. But yeah, it's funny to hear these people who just started their second year of law school talking about how this firm is clearly going to try to groom them to take over this long-time operating law firm, right?
Of which no one there even knows who they are.
Yeah. Look, self-admittedly, there is a lot of narcissism amongst lawyers.
I would say the best information I would have just peering into that world would be the show Suits. Now, I think it's accurate because, they do just make the lower guys do the bitch work and like, hey, comb through all these case files and find me this. Like, that's got to be accurate, right?
That
when you're
accurate.
New, that's what you do.
That part's accurate for sure. when you're a baby lawyer. Look, the real reality is when you're a lawyer between your first and basically fourth years, you're barely usable to any law firm.
Because you're just you're a gopher.
You really don't know what
coffee,
you're doing.
Find me, these pages in this giant box of shit.
Look, I could tell you stories about managing document production in cases, my favorite of which being from the Anna Nicole Smith case I told you that I did.
Yeah.
And not to say thousands of pages, we had thousands of boxes full of documents.
Of just like her entire life?
It's not even hers. It was really the estate. Remember, she married a quote unquote billionaire oil magnate, right?
Yeah.
Who had a, let's say, a very complicated estate plan. And over years of working with lawyers and estate planning attorneys and all kinds of stuff, it's just thousands and thousands and thousands of boxes of documents. But, we had documents from him and from his family and from his lawyers and from their files and the accountant's files and the files from their business. And, there was a lot that goes into it. But we actually had
How many people were working on that?
At my firm, ultimately, we had four of us that were partners. And then but I started that case as an associate at that firm when I was an associate. And there was probably about three of us as associates working on it, and there were 3 partners. During the pendency of that case is when I actually became a partner at that firm. That's how long ago this was. And did half of that case as an associate and half of that case as a partner, including all the trials. I was already a partner at that firm. But that case spanned over 10 years for me too. I mean, we probably billed millions and millions and millions of dollars to that case over the duration that we had.
And then when it was done, was it done?
No, actually pieces of it are still going on, believe it or not. Yeah.
All right, so let's back up a little bit. Like, you're in law school. What are the different paths that you can take? Like, do you choose to be a tax lawyer? Do you choose to be an entertainment lawyer? Like, where does that kind of fork in the road come?
So that actually comes for most lawyers sort of around the time they're looking at what is their first job. Because to an extent, if you kind of have a field of an area of what law that you want to go into, then you're going to try to go to work for lawyers who are already doing that. So you
kind of come out of law school as an agnostic lawyer.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, because there's a big, huge difference between law school and medical school. When you go to medical school, they're teaching you all the parts of the body and all the medicine and all that kind of stuff.
And then you shift into a specialty and you
right.
progress into years of study of that specialty, whether it's neurology or cardiology and things like that.
That's right. So what I do, for lawyers, they always say that we teach you how to think like a lawyer. And that's actually an appropriate way of putting it, because learning to spot issues in cases is a big thing to do. I mean, understanding where the issues are is one of the most important things. Then when you get out, a lot of times is when you'll be focusing on kind of more of a general area of law that you want to practice. There's no course of study in law school that says, oh, I'm going to now go the litigation route, or I'm going to go the product liability route.
But you're getting all the building blocks. So you have courses that do exercising in litigation. You have courses that show you how to research tax, or
you'll have.
Is that what you're doing?
You have a general field of study, right? So there's certain mandatory courses. When your first year, every course is mandatory. But then when you get into after that, you have certain courses like procedure and evidence and those kinds of things that are mandatory. Then you'll generally use a general package of stuff, whether it's oil and gas or trust, wills and estates, et cetera. You get some flexibility for quote unquote electives, but not there's not enough of them to really specialize in a course of study. That comes generally more through your training.
All right, so you graduate. Where did you go?
I went to work out of law school at a firm called Byrne, Maynard and Parsons. It was what at one time was the largest litigation-only firm in the Southwest. That firm subsequently, some number of years ago, broke up. And part of it merged into a bigger firm. Part of it turned into a smaller firm. But I don't really think much about that in my career. About my third year of practice, I went to work at a firm at the time that was called Ware, Snow, Fogel, and Jackson, which we then broke up at some point and split into 3 firms and became Ware, Jackson, Lee, and Chambers. But that was where I spent the bulk of my career in development. And then eventually that took me into my own firm.
Okay, walk me into... Because this is, again, there's plenty of dramatic shows out there that all follow lawyers and things like that. So it's like people like me that have never even looked into that field. Like, I know show me the makeup of the business. Like, when you have a law firm as a company, how do lawyers come in and work their way up to becoming a partner? What does that mean? What does an associate mean? What are those steps that essentially that from a brand new lawyer, what are they trying to achieve?
Well, most of them for ego's sake are trying to achieve the partner title at some firm.
And that means you're a co-owner of the company now.
Yeah, it means exactly what you would think. Yeah. So when you are, like if you're a secretary or a paralegal, then you're generally just considered an employee. As an associate, it's really just a fancy title for a lawyer who's an employee. When you are a partner, then it's exactly that. Let's say at my firm, we had something like the last iteration of it, we had something like 9 partners, and then however many associates we had at the time. So all of us are co-owners in different percentages.
And you earn your partnership by bringing clientele and money into the firm.
It's ironic that you say that. That's one of the reasons why I left that firm. Generally, yes, in a way. You earn it through time and experience, proving that you're capable of doing the job. They want to be partners with you. But for many firms, it also involves the ability to generate business on your own. In my way of looking at it, you're not that useful if you're not also bringing business into the firm. The first iteration of my firm, that was definitely true. The second iteration, that actually changed a little bit, and they started focusing more on other things as well, like your ability to service the clients that we had, for example, instead of your ability to bring in your own business. I had a very divergent viewpoint because obviously looking at this from any standard, like even taking our model, the t-shirt model, if we have a guy come to work for us, but after his first year, he's brought a few $1 million in outside business. Why wouldn't we say, hey, you know what? We want to open the books. We want to offer you a piece of the company because if you keep doing this, we're going to keep growing. Absolutely. And when we started considering other things like, we're going to weight that against, the amount of money that you collect on the time that you spend on the other files that have been generated by the partners, to me, that became problematic, and it's a recipe for long-term disaster because you're starting to get too heavy on lawyers that aren't generating revenue into a business. And that just sounds like poor management. Well, look, or a flawed management style. I don't know. It could be. It kind of seems like you need to create this progression of, hey, when you're this associate, like you're only allotted so much time to work on new stuff because you're here to work on the shit that we need done. Yeah, of course. And I get that. And that's a balancing too, because at the same time, they also expect you to start learning to generate business. And that takes time because if you think about it, what are the odds that, somebody's going to come out and meet with you guys, for example, and say, I want to be Black Rifle's lawyer. And I've been out of law school 3 years. Yeah. You're not likely to. So that takes time to be able to really develop that business anyways. There is rationale for doing it. It's not a terrible idea because some lawyers are simply better at bringing in new business. Yeah, personal, networked. Not to mention their skill as a lawyer, right? Yeah. So oftentimes those lawyers can bring in way more business than they can handle. And so those higher level people are needed to service those clients also, right? So there's a rationale for it, but if you too heavily weight and too heavily reward lawyers for that, then you have a small amount of people bringing in revenue trying to support a very large base. All right, so give us your best advice out there for anybody that needs a lawyer, because there's a mass majority of people that have never seen a criminal case go down in court. I've actually seen one, and it was crazy to me. There's a lot of people that never seen a civil case. Really, the average person has ever only come before a judge for maybe a traffic violation or something like that they wanted to fight. So it's like this process is so new. So if any of our listeners have found themselves in the situation where they feel they need to find a lawyer or seeking law advice and stuff like that, what should they be looking for? You're going to love this answer. Do you know what the number one thing is I tell people to avoid when they're looking for a lawyer? Billboards. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. If you got their ad if you saw them on a billboard or on a TV advertising, in my opinion, that's a virtually 100% guarantee that you don't want to hire that lawyer. I mean, I've never advertised for anything in my life, and I have more cases than I know what to do with. But
because of word of mouth in the people that you would want to take on as clients.
Yeah, my business comes from referrals from existing clients, and it comes from referrals from other lawyers, which is usually the number.
And like you said, in your guys' world, you all refer clients to each other that specialize in that area that you know and you trust.
Absolutely. So if you came to me with, a certain, let's say you came to me and you had an invention you wanted to see about patenting it. That's one of the few things they don't do is patenting. But, I would say, great, I know who you need to go to. You should go see this lawyer. He's the guy that you'd really want to talk to here. And so that happens quite a bit because certain lawyers do specialize in other areas. Now, I'm not a huge proponent of these lawyers that claim that they're specialists in certain areas. Specializing for a lot of lawyers is how to take a decent lawyer and make them into a good lawyer because they do the same thing over and over again. A great lawyer does not need to do that. Okay?
Yeah.
So, you can relate it to military too. You probably have plenty of average soldiers out there that if you give them, if they're doing the same thing over and over again, they get good at that job. But you take a guy who's a tier 1 operator and he can do any job well, even if it's the first time he's doing it practically, right? There's a skill level associated with that. And for example,
it's kind of a drive to learn, or somebody that knows how to become an expert as opposed to somebody that thinks they're just doing a minuscule task. Whereas just looking at that obstacle, saying, hey, I'm going to read the manual before I even try this because I need to get things spinning. I need to get some knowledge base on it. Whereas, there are other types of people that just say, I'm just going to wing it.
Yeah, there are. And, in any given case, there is a very finite set of laws that are actually applying to that case. So it's not that hard for me to go, all right, well, here's what the law is as it pertains to this issue. Knowing what to do with those facts and that law is the skill of a good lawyer.
So stay away from billboards, stay away from ads in general.
Absolutely.
So then if you're not networked in that community, then how can they find a good one that they can trust?
It's not easy, but here's basically the things that I would do. Okay. First of all, here's my favorite. If you're in a small town, go to the courthouse. Generally, they will tell you that they can't refer you to people, but eventually a clerk's going to tell you who's down there all the time, which happens to be somebody who's probably close to the judge, and that's generally going to be a good sign for you. But when years ago, my mom gave me a little paperweight, and it just says, a good lawyer knows the law and a great lawyer knows the judge.
That's the title for this episode.
So but for most of us, we're in more metropolitan areas. Okay. So there's a couple of things you can do at that point. And I distinguish ads from Google searches. Google searches are going to take you to certain lawyers and certain websites that are likely to give you good information about that lawyer and about what their experience is or the firm's experience in handling certain kinds of cases. That's generally right on. And, look, it ain't that hard to have a good website. If the lawyer's got a shitty website,
it's not hard to have a good website.
It's really not. You can make them on your own and make them not suck, right? So that's a good place to do it. Referrals from people are another good way to do it, but qualify your referral source. If it's, I know this dude, that's one thing. If it's
drinking buddies,
right?
Yeah.
If it's this person is, I was represented by this person and they did a good job for me, that's a totally different issue. There's also some sources out there like Avo and even Facebook and stuff like that where people will leave reviews of their lawyers that they've had, and that's a good way of telling. When you find a lawyer that you think might be appropriate, go meet them and spend a few minutes interviewing them. That's a critically important part of it. Here's some things that I'll tell you about it. A lot of lawyers will charge consultation fees to sit and talk with you about their case.
Yeah.
If I got to charge you $300, $400, $500 to sit with you and tell you about your case, that's probably because either I get a lot of shitty referrals from clients who are kind of not going to go anywhere cases,
yeah,
or I need the money. In either case, that's a bad sign, right? If your lawyer doesn't make sense when you talk to him, that's a bad sign. And another thing is to ask them for kinds of cases that they have on their docket currently. If they don't sound impressive, they're probably not an impressive lawyer. If they're working on bigger, more interesting sounding stuff, there's usually a reason for that.
Yeah. I mean, just like driving into Vegas coming from the north and then driving into Las Vegas, you are bombarded with hundreds of billboards for personal injury attorneys. And it's just like, it's almost like they're saying, hey, while you're in Vegas, get hurt at the MGM and then call me.
Right.
It's so slimy.
It is.
Like, so what would you say to anybody out there that thinks like suing someone is their get rich quick scheme?
Yeah. You never want to do that. There's a buddy of mine calls it litigation lottery.
Yeah.
It's
like, what are the statistics on them even like them getting settlements or winning cases? Like, is there any, like, what happened with that McDonald's case and a woman burning her mouth or whatever? It's famous.
Let's talk about that case for a second.
Yeah. Because nobody knows the truth. Everybody knows the urban legend.
Right.
Of girl burns herself at McDonald's with coffee and gets $1 billion.
Yeah. She got something like 109 million or something.
Is that real?
Yeah.
How do they justify that?
Okay. Well, so let's talk about that.
All right.
We'll do it law school style.
Yeah.
So let's say that I spilled some coffee on myself. Let's say you spilled it on me, okay? And I burned my leg, but it's going to heal.
Yeah.
Maybe I've got a doctor's visit, even a follow-up visit for a little bit of wound care. It's not a whole lot.
Yeah. It's,
how should I be compensated for that?
Yeah. How do you put a number to that?
Well, you start with things like, what were the medical expenses? I should be reimbursed for those. And then I'm entitled to something for pain and suffering if I had it, right?
Yeah, but how do you come up with $109 million?
Well, that's the thing. See, everybody knows the number and they know that she burned herself and they say, well, that's screwed up, right? What they don't know is that very little of that is what we call actual damages, which is really, she got compensated for
because that
medicals.
case lasted like what, 6 years or something like that?
Yeah. So, very little of that verdict was based on the actual damage that she suffered. The bulk of that verdict was in punitive damages. And here's what the people don't tell you. So punitive damages are those damages that are designed to punish the wrongdoer. If the conduct is bad enough, then we can in certain cases, we can apply punitive damages, which means these are just designed to punish you and to deter you from doing similar things.
So let's say McDonald's accidentally hires a convicted felon of violent crimes and he beats a customer with a pipe. So we're gonna take punitive damages from McDonald's because you were negligent here.
If the jury finds that they didn't do the background check they should have and he was grossly negligent. Interestingly,
I see this, but when you're coming down to saying someone ordered a hot coffee and then burned themselves with hot coffee.
Here's the piece you're missing. The reason they got a punitive damage award is because McDonald's actually did a study, and they found that if they overheated their coffee to unsafe temperatures, they could make the pot of coffee last longer, thereby going through substantially less of it during a day. They were wasting less coffee, and so it made them more profit. And they knew that they were heating to unsafe temperatures in order to save a few pennies on a pot of coffee.
There we go. See, there's the answer.
That's what the jury said.
You do that in 10,000 stores. You save a bag of coffee.
It's a ton of money.
Every 4 hours. Yeah, you cut a lot of costs.
So here's the reason why the number was so high. You could think that it could be even less, but punitive damages are designed to punish. So one of the things that I can do if I have a valid claim for punitive damages in a case is I actually get into introducing evidence of what your net worth is. Okay? Mm-hmm. So if I wanted to punish you, let's say you were grossly negligent,
because I'm sure there's a paper trail here of people saying, hey, we can't do this, and people higher up in the chain saying, no, we're going to.
Yes.
Because I guarantee that's where this led.
So if I wanted to punish you, I could get maybe a punitive damage award of $20 is going to hurt your wallet, right? Not knowing what you're sitting on. But if I'm a billionaire, $1,000 in punitive damages, I mean, I probably have that in my car, right? Yeah. So So the number in punitive damages has to have some correlation to what their net worth is so that they feel it. Otherwise, it's not a punishment. If I'm like, dude, if you do that, I'm going to fine you $1, you're going to go whatever. But if I'm like, I'm going to fine you 20,000,
then it's like, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Right. And that's what that McDonald's net worth, coupled with the fact that they did that whole study and still went through it, is where that verdict came from, not her actual damages.
I see it now.
Yeah, but nobody wants to talk about that part of it. They just want to go, oh, that's evidence.
I'm so glad that we went into that, because again, that has been like the longest urban legend in the litigation lottery or whatever you called it. Like, have you? So yeah. Go back to anybody that thinks like I'm going to sue somebody though. Like that's an extreme case.
Gone are really the days of people having, what
like
you
when
call
you sue your neighbor or something like that, like, I'm going to get $1 million because I broke my ankle. Like he doesn't have $1 million.
And that's the piece that people forget too. If your defendant doesn't have the money to pay you, your verdict's not really worth very much, right?
So people can get verdicts for like crazy amounts, even if somebody doesn't have that.
Yeah. Look here. Let me give you a good example too. I have a friend of mine that tried a case recently. An older woman got hit and run over in a Walmart parking lot. Okay.
That's not Walmart's fault.
Well, it is actually. It's their property, and one of the allegations was that there's regulations on how those things need to be striped for where people need to cross and where the crosswalks were. Mm-hmm. So they brought a premises liability case against Walmart saying you striped your parking lot inaccurately and it was missing stop signs, and therefore this woman got hit when she shouldn't have gotten hit. Right? Yeah. That case was probably worth $400,000 in real life money based on the injuries that she suffered. Jury popped Walmart for $42.5 million.
Wow.
Okay. All fine and wonderful. Walmart's got the money to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
All fine and wonderful, but the reality is they're going to appeal that, and the Court of Appeals is going to take that verdict away from them because it bears no rational relationship to the injuries that were suffered.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the step now.
There was a lot.
You might get a verdict, then we go to appeals.
Mm-hmm.
Appeals go, you guys threw this number out there completely randomly.
Yeah, the jury didn't have any evidence to base this on. The punitive damages that they've awarded bear no rational relationship. They do still have to be kind of tied to the actual damages. So I can't have $10 in damages and get $100 million in punitive, no matter how rich.
So here's another question: you get a verdict like that,
mm-hmm.
the day that woman's sitting in court and hears, "Hey, verdict is in your favor for $42 million." When does she see a deposit?
She's not. One of the things, here's the way that plays out.
Yeah.
There will not ever be a deposit. What's going to happen is at some point in time, the defendants may then come to you saying, well, look, we're going to appeal this unless you want to settle on the verdict. So you may take a less amount of money to not go through the appeal. See, if I was the defense lawyers in that case, I would tell my own friend who tried it, I'd say, good luck holding that. And in order to appeal it, I have to post a bond, which is what's called a supersedious bond. It does not go to the plaintiff ever. And then I can file my appeal, and I'm going to go, look, you're never going to win that. It's going to get taken away by the time the Court of Appeals is done with it. We're going to be back trying this case again, and that's going to be back in a year and a half, 2 years.
And you're now 2 years onto your law fees,
right,
on your side. But at that point, though, that side's law team is like, okay, we can get $5 million. I know we can, so I just have to convince her that that's okay. So we're not wasting all of our time. Is that kind of the strategy here?
Yeah, at that point, you have to advise your client and go, look, if they do appeal it, we're going to lose this. The Court of Appeals is going to take it away from us, and 2 years later, we're going to try it again, and who knows what we're going to get the next time. Or we can get a settlement now, and let's see how much money they're willing to give us now to avoid the risk. Because what they're doing, the defendants are buying off risk.
Yeah.
Plaintiffs are too at that point.
And time.
Mm-hmm.
Risk and time.
Absolutely.
Like,
I used to represent AIG. When you get insurance, you probably already know this, but generally,
I own AIG stock. It's the only stock I've ever bought.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So if you had, your business may have like $1 million in liability insurance. But oftentimes businesses will go get excess insurance on top of that. For the general person, it's like buying car insurance and buying what we call an umbrella. So I used to get hired a lot by AIG's excess department, which meant that if the damages were going to be bad enough in that case to get into their layer of coverage, then they would bring me in to take it over. Well, one of the big hammers
We've had that. We've had that with the movie.
Yeah.
So we had entertainment insurance. We had a case that was ongoing that exceeded the insurance, and then once it exceeded that
primary layer,
premium or whatever you want to call it, then they attacked it with full force and shut it down and got a settlement.
Yeah. See, I was the guy that came in then and said, "All right, it's time for me to take over." Right.
Yeah.
And I had a hammer with them because at the time AIG was really big about this, and they would go, "We don't really care. We're going to try this case. And if we lose it, we're going to appeal it. And if we lose the appeal, we're going to appeal it again. And we're going to continue that process indefinitely."
Yeah.
And until we've exhausted all of our appeals. So you may win the trial, but you're in for a 5-year fight, and we don't care because we have the money. At that time, AIG's philosophy, their excess philosophy was, if I take my lawyers off the hook, if I let them off the chain and let them do their job, I'm going to spend more money on them. But I'm going to save way more money in the long run in what I have to pay out.
Yeah.
A lot of insurance companies don't operate that way, but at the time we were able to do that. And I got to spend $400,000 one time buying a trash truck and buying a Dodge Neon and crashing the trash truck into the Dodge Neon just to prove what crush depth would be in a override collision, just to try to establish that we were right about our defense of the case. And AIG let me do that. I still have the video to this day.
That's freaking cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever had like super heated litigation moments in court? Yeah. Like the yelling back and forth and I don't know the lingo,
Yes.
I object.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to hear some of these. Where was the best one?
Oh.
That got fired up like just way over the top.
Well, I got told to fuck off by Anna Nicole Smith, and then yelled.
Oh, she was still alive.
Yes, at that time.
Yeah.
During when I was working on that case, she was still alive. She didn't die till I stopped working on that case.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of heated arguments with lawyers.
But you were defending Anna Nicole.
No.
Oh, you were the other side.
I was defending the estate of her husband.
Nice.
Yeah. So to this day, she never got $1 of money. All of that and everything that happened, I tried that.
Jeff's a good lawyer.
I tried that case twice in Texas, and then somebody else had tried it in California, and then I had to go try that case again to the federal district court. And so that was 3 times I tried that case, and then we appealed it to the Ninth Circuit. But at all of that, she's neither her nor her family nor estate nor anything has ever received a dime out of that estate. Now,
And that's what the family wanted?
Yeah, see, what happened is the husband, Jay Howard,
Yeah.
so they were going to do a prenup, and she talked him into going to Vegas and getting married. And afterwards, he calls his lawyer and kind of says, "Yeah, I fucked this one up, right? So we need to work on my estate plan." But his theory was, yeah.
Can you do that?
You can, actually, in Texas. So I have a case involving a post-up right now. So in any event, what he said about it is, I want to take care of her during her lifetime so that I don't have to provide for her after her death. Okay? After my death.
Okay.
And people always like, oh, she should have gotten something. Look, she was married to the dude for 14 months. She should have gotten something. She spent less than 50 days under the same roof with him. And she got over $7 million in cash gifts and prizes during their 14-month marriage.
Jesus.
I mean, I'd have married the guy for $7 million bucks.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah. I did this great exhibit because, I like graphics and stuff with my company.
Exhibit A.
We did this exhibit for the trial where I got somebody to animate it. And what we did is we made a huge Neiman Marcus bag. She had massive Neiman Marcus bills, a cartoon version of a Neiman Marcus bag. And then we'd put in like a condo and rings and money and houses, all the things that she got. And every time we did it, it would ring a new total on the exhibit to show how much stuff that she acquired during that marriage.
What a greedy bitch.
Yeah, she was. She was.
Was she broke? She had money of her own.
She filed for bankruptcy about 8 months after Jay Howard died.
But is that is that like a ploy to like keep money, or did she really have nothing left?
This is a woman who lost $250,000 of jewelry because she left it in a brown paper bag in the back of a taxi cab in New York City.
Jesus.
Absolutely. So that's what you're dealing with. Look, she's from Texas, right? This is a woman who was reprehensible in every conceivable way. There was nothing that was even decent about her as a human being. Although I will say it's the only time in a deposition ever in my career that the expression was used, muff diving, in her deposition.
Solid.
Because she had a chick, lesbian lover. And, somebody asked one of those, she said, well, we would hang out, we would do things, and well, what kind of things? And then she starts getting kind of catty, right? And she's like, like muff diving, stuff like that.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
She screamed at you in court?
She did, and then she told one of my co-counsel, screw you, from the witness stand. That was interesting.
Have you ever gone back and forth with another lawyer in court? Like just straight up, like, go ahead. Like, have you ever gone in just knowing something they didn't and waiting to just drop that hammer and then walk out?
Yeah.
I want to hear that. I want to hear that story.
Drop the mic.
Yeah. Just, oh, you didn't do your homework, did you? Here's this piece of information.
What was the old Eric B. and Rakim song? I say cool, but I don't get upset. I kick a hole in the speaker, drop the mic, and I jet.
Have you ever had that moment?
Yeah, it doesn't come out as Matlocky as that in actual.
Damn it.
Yeah, and the rules of procedure.
You never just find that one piece of paper like in Suits and it wins the whole case.
Right, like the TV show. Now, what you do have is you do find that one piece of paper sometime that's going to make all the difference. That actually does happen, but it's not like, all of a sudden we tell everybody about it and everybody dismisses the case and they award us a bunch of money. Like, you still got to go through the process. But believe me, when you find it and you turn it over, the dynamic of the case changes radically.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I did a multi-million-dollar divorce. This was probably a $30 million estate, where we ended up with an email from the guy's accountant to the husband. I represented the wife in that one. And the guy's accountant sent an email to the husband where what had happened was he fired his accountant. Then he needed documents later on, and his former accountant wasn't calling him back. Clearly what's going on is the guy leaves a voicemail and says, like, what the hell? I thought we were friends. Okay. So the accountant writes back. And in no bullshit, this is what he says. He's like, look, you're right. In fact, we're more than friends. I'll never forget the fact that when I got diagnosed with cancer, you are the guy that buried the radiology report and the MRI so that I could go out and get life insurance for my family. But don't forget, here, doctor, I'm hanging out on a limb here too, because everything I did for you when you decided to get a divorce, I could easily get sued by your wife because I owed her a duty too as the family accountant. And I mean, he just admitted in writing that he helped the husband commit fraud, right?
Oh, yeah.
Guess what? That case changes character real fast when we turn that document over.
Because now it's fraud.
Yeah. And more to the point, we have proof of it. So you do get those kinds of things. There's frequently that you find that one little, nitty gritty piece of information that's going to change the case's character. It's just not as Matlocky.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because now he's going to have to defend against fraud.
Yeah, the only bummer about the practice is in the new, kinder, gentler world that we live in, you can't get away with things that we used to. In the old days, we could cowboy up a lot. I mean, we had screaming matches and depositions, and fuck you, you fat fucking piece of shit, and yelling at each other across the table, right?
Yeah.
And that actually kind of stopped now, where you get real problems when you do that kind of stuff in deposition. And now, judges will sanction you for not being professional. And
oh, damn.
I had to attend a hearing the other day where a guy got sanctioned because he called another lawyer a bitch in the deposition. Now, in his defense, of course, I'm by the way, this is a lawyer that I'm suing in 3 different cases for legal malpractice. But in his defense, she did call him a fraud-feeser only half a second before he called her a bitch. So I kind of get it, but the judge sanctioned him nonetheless.
Oh, this is great. We're gonna have to have you back on again because we can go full Rogan with these stories. If anybody in the state of Texas is in need of your services, how can they find you?
Well, my website, obviously. I could give them your cell phone number and have them all text you.
No thanks.
I do obviously have a website. It's at jeffdiamantlaw.com, which is JEFFDIAMANT law.com. And that's the easy way to find me. Or they can call my office, 713-789-0111.
And if they want a guitar, they could go to diamondguitars.com.
That's even easier. They can go there, they can buy the guitar, and it ships right to their house.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for coming on the show. We'll be excited to have you back again. Ladies and gentlemen, Launch Code.